where you spend most of your time. And not only your time, but your money. And whatever it is, that wherever you're putting the focus.
All right. Those things reveal that you love those things more. All right.
Some people love shopping. Some love eating.
Yeah. Drinking. Whatever the thing is, that if you spend your time there, and Jesus said it, and look with me at verse 34, what Jesus tells us about these things. He says, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Wherever you put your priority, whatever you spend your time with, that's where your heart is. Some people come to church and really they put a lot of heart in singing. And there's nothing wrong with singing, but there are some things that may be just a little more important. I love singing, and nobody can tell me that I don't, because I do. Because even though I don't sing, I love to hear. But where your heart is, he says that's where your treasures are also. Too many of you, your heart is in the wrong place. Some of you need to consider how you're spending your time and your money with the Lord. Or you will be held accountable for what you're doing. As a Christian, you need to check yourself to see about your life. And is it having the right priorities? Not only should we consider our priorities, but we need to consider this thought, that we will be accountable for the blessings that the Lord gives us. God does bless us. And when he blesses us, sometimes that people need to understand that God blesses us for a reason. You need to know that the blessings that you receive come from the Lord. In other words, that some people have in their mind believe that they are the ones that are responsible for their good fortune. That is because of their health and strength that they're able to do something. But I want to share with you that is wrong. And the Lord will illustrate to us that it is wrong. Look at verse 16 with me for a moment. And he spake this parable, them saying, the ground where a certain man brought forth plentiful. Now, even though this man was responsible for the ground, this man planted the seed in the ground, but it was God that caused the seed to grow. It was God that sent the rain when the rain needed to fall. It was God that sent the sunshine when the sunshine needed to shine. If the Lord doesn't send the rain, if he doesn't send the sunlight, if he's not sending, there won't be no plentifulness. Every time that I see where there's a drought, there's normally a famine in the land. So we need to be mindful of this certain rich man. Even though he brought forth plentiful, he can only plant the seed. Too many times people think they are the reason for the good things that are happening. So it is in this particular parable that Jesus did not say this man is a bad man. I want to say that from the outset, that there's nothing to indicate to say that Jesus said that this man was a bad man. And see, you don't have to be bad for bad things to happen. But that's not where I want to take you this morning. For this man does not harm anyone in the parable. However, this man prospers in the parable. But he did not give any thought of his obligation to God or anyone else. That in his plentifulness, that the only person that he thought about was himself. Do you see the same thing happening in the church? That the Lord has blessed the church, but the church won't help anyone. Hello, you got quiet on me. It's important that you understand that we too get blessing in the church, and the church ought to be a blessing to someone else. Jesus tells us in his word, and there in Luke in chapter 12, verse 48, that unto whom so much is given, much is required. In other words, that when God blesses you, that he is looking for you to bless somebody else. Too many times we are taking a blessing and we're sitting on the blessing. Won't do anything, and all you're thinking about is yourself. But the Lord wants to remind us that it's strange that people only hear the Lord when they're going through something. That when they're struggling and having some hard times, that's when they call on the Lord. And too many times that we leave the Lord out and we can't see our blessing, but because we think it is ourselves. But when we give God the credit, as Christians, we don't need to think like this. Look at this man, because this is the reason that Jesus shares this particular parable. That in this particular scripture, in verse 17, it says that, and he thought within himself. This is the man in the parable saying, "What shall I do? Because I have no room to bestow my fruit." All about him. Then he says that this will I do. I will pull down my bones and build greater, and then I will bestow all my fruits in my good. I. But with thy God, you can't do nothing. Yeah. Important that as Christians that we understand that it is the Lord that gives us help and strength. We need to understand what the Lord has shared with us, even in the book of Deuteronomy, there in the 8th chapter, looking at verse 17, verse 18, that he says, "And thou saidst, thou art my power and thy might, my hand hath gotten me this well." Then he says, "But the Lord shall remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth." It is God that gives you what you get. You need to be mindful of what the Lord is doing. So it is that you need to check yourself and consider the consequences, because you will be held accountable for what you do. So it's not only that, but using this, and as this particular man, he what we get, that we need to use it in the right way. Because God has blessed us, and there's some things and how he wants us to do some things. But look, this rich man, and in verse 19, and I'll be quickly